the light, simple, and relatively inexpensive F-5 fighter jet, really stands out among its buddies that were in service with the U.S. Air Force. American fighters from the second and third generations were heavy, with complex designs and, as a result, crazy expensive. The beefy Century Series planes that started joining the U.S. Air Force in the late 50s turned out to be too pricey for many U.S. allies. They required big bucks for operations, repairs, and training the air crews. In 1958, the Pentagon signed a deal with Northrop to develop a relatively simple and affordable supersonic fighter, optimized for hitting ground targets, while still being able to dogfight. The jet was meant primarily for export through various mutual aid programs. Around the same time, the U.S. Air Force concluded they didn't need a fighter like that, so the F-5 could be pushed into foreign markets. President Kennedy, who took office in 1962, threw Northrop and the F-5 a lifeline. His administration said to spare no expense for defending freedom and fighting communism. This involved widely selling supersonic fighters to U.S. allies. That's when they needed the F-5, giving it the fitting name Freedom Fighter. Northrop beat out the competition with two strong cards. Low-cost, the F-5A was $100,000 cheaper than the cheapest F-104 variant, without radar and NAV system, and the possible international selection of the T-38, which had a lot in common with the F-5 as NATO's joint trainer. In April 1962, the Pentagon officially announced the F-5A as the fighter for mutual aid deliveries, and in August of that year, a contract was signed for 170 single-seat F-5 as and twin-seat F-5B trainer models. In February 1964, the company got its first export order for 64 aircraft from Norway. The customer demanded upgrades to the original F-5A for operations in the Arctic, adding a heated windshield and tailhook for short runways. Orders then followed from Iran, Greece, South Korea, and by late 1965, the company had an order book of around 1,000 fighters. The F-5A was indeed becoming an international fighter. F-5s of various models have served or are serving with the air forces of Bahrain, Brazil, both Vietnams, the Netherlands, Honduras, Indonesia, Jordan, Spain, Yemen, Canada, Kenya, Libya, Malaysia, Mexico, Morocco, Norway, Saudi Arabia, Singapore, Sudan, the U.S., Thailand, Tunisia, Taiwan, Turkey, the Philippines, Switzerland, and Ethiopia. The Americans were the first to field test the lightweight fighters in combat conditions in Vietnam. In July 1965, the 4,503rd Tactical Fighter Squadron was formed with 12 fighters from 1963 to 64 production for combat evaluation. Before deploying to Vietnam, the jets got 90 kilograms of armor, detachable underwing pylons for weapons, air refueling probes, and bomb sights with computers. The silver planes received tricolor camouflage paint schemes. Over 3.5 months, the squadron's pilots flew around 2,700 combat sorties totaling 4,000 hours. They destroyed at least 2,500 structures, 120 sampans, about 100 trucks, and roughly 50 fortifications. Their losses were 1 F-5 downed in December by small arms fire. The pilot ejected unsuccessfully and died in hospital. 2 more jets took SAM hits to their engines, but managed to limp back on one engine. All combat missions were solely for hitting ground targets. The pilots noted the excellent stability and control of the aircraft under all loadouts. They especially emphasized how nearly impossible it was to spin the jet thanks to its small size and agility, making the F-5 a tricky target for Viet Cong AA guns. Stats showed the Super Sabre was hit once every 90 sorties, the F-5 once every 240. They praised the easy maintenance and reliability. After the successful combat trials, these jets began deliveries to the South Vietnamese Air Force. The VNAF received a total of 120 F-5A divided by B and RF 5A reconnaissance models, plus at least 118 upgraded F-5ES, some ex-Iranian and South Korean jets. There are no reports of dogfights with MiGs, though at least 4 RF-5A recon birds were downed over the Ho Chi Minh Trail. In April 1975, VNAF Lieutenant Nguyen Thanh Trung bombed the presidential palace in Saigon with his F-5E before defecting to a northern airfield. This bombing was the start of the communist victory and frantic U.S. evacuation from Saigon. In May, the war ended. As trophies, the Vietnamese communists captured 87 F-5A/BS and 27 F-5Es. Some joined mixed squadrons with MiG-21s. By 1978, all F-5s were concentrated in the 935th Fighter Regiment based at Da Nang, actively used until the mid-80s. The Vietnamese passed a few captured jets to the USSR, Czechoslovakia, and Poland for thorough evaluation. One F-5E each is displayed in aviation museums in Krakow and Prague.